year for 3 nights. They'll be gone on the November 9th until the 11th. And this year they are going to Mount Diablo State Park campsite. So each year they try to go to a different location where they can study the environment. Again, this is a program in which our students get hands-on experience in environmental justice. And so we are really pleased that they are going somewhere more local this year, and the students will not be driving themselves this year. I know we had a little conversation about that last year, and we changed our policy to make sure that students are going with adult drivers. And so, yes, this is their annual trip, and we just wanted to make sure that we gave them approval in time for them to attend. Thank you.
Any questions on this item or a motion?
I move to approve the consent calendar as is.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, they can go on their field trip. Yay! This open session portion is adjourned, and we will return for our regularly scheduled board meeting at 7 p.m. Call back to order this regular board meeting. We had a short special meeting at the start where we approved a field trip for our ed set. Of course,
Recording in progress.
the board did, hold on, I gotta go in the right order here, I'm sorry. There's two agendas. We're gonna start roll call first, and then we'll go into the other items.
Student Board Member Shepherd. Here. Student Board Member Deodar.
Here.
Student Trustee Mahoney. Oh, excuse me, Trustee Mahoney, not a student anymore.
I'll take it as a compliment that I was mistaken for a student, but I am here.
Pardon me. Trustee Khan.
Here.
Trustee Boyd.
No student Boyd member?
No.
Board member Boyd? Here.
President Davidson.
You were so formal earlier with present.
President Davidson.
Here.
And Vice President Hopwood is absent for the record. Thank you.
And we have our Assistant Superintendent Ann Shin is sitting in for Dr. Evans, who unfortunately had a family emergency that called him away from the district for the past little bit. So our thoughts are with Dr. Evans, and we've been so grateful for Dr. Shin stepping in these past few days and like a week. Yeah. Okay. We will now do the reading of the AUSD mission and vision statement and the meeting norms.
The mission of Albany Unified School District is to provide excellent public education that empowers all to achieve their fullest potential as productive citizens. AUSD is committed to creating comprehensive learning opportunities in a safe, supportive, and collaborative environment, addressing the individual needs of each student.
Meeting norms. Maintain a focus on what is best for our students. Ensure a safe environment for all views to be expressed, treating each other, staff, and the public respectfully. Endeavor to find common solutions to issues through collaboration without sacrificing one's belief in what is best for our students. Make a commitment to effective deliberation, each one listening with an open mind while others are allowed to express their own points of view, even if one disagrees.
Okay, we will now say the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and join us if you would like. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. We will now report on our action taken in closed session. The board took action to accept the resignation of employee ID number 6859 effective January 31st, 2025. And we will now look for an approval of our agenda or any motions to change items or the order.
I'm going to make a motion to move the action items 13A and 13B up to be in the same section as item 10, review and action, with 13B first and then 13A.
And I would actually say, could we actually just move them up to item, I would say let's do public comment for, for matters not on the agenda, and then do it so we're about 7:30 on those action items. The reason being that we are anticipating that some students might be coming to speak on that, and so we always try to prioritize getting our students in and out at the earliest convenient time. So we will look for I'll second your motion that we'll move it up to be after public comment for items not on the agenda. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So we will go with that. Okay. And we will now do our recognition, which is a proclamation. The board recognizes and promotes awareness months and national months or days with proclamations that encourage the district to observe these occasions with appropriate events and instructional activities. And this month, we are recognizing November as Native American Heritage Month. And we will take turns as a board reading out the different whereases of this. And if it's okay, Student Trustee Shepherd, can we start with you? Oh, sorry. I don't want to put you on the spot. We'll start with Josh. We want to make sure that we're pronouncing things, not that you won't. So if you feel confident with it, feel free to start. But Trustee Mahoney looked up all the pronunciations, so
No pressure.
you let us know. He can do it. Okay. We'll go down and we'll come back to you.
Whereas Albany Unified School District, AUSD schools are located in the Huichin territory of the Choqueño-speaking indigenous Ohlone people, organized as the Confederate Villages of Lishan, also referred to as the Lishan Nation, and
Whereas the City of Albany and AUSD recognize that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederate villages of Lishan, and
Whereas the City of Albany recognizes the Confederated, goodness, Trustee Mahoney, you clearly did a much better job than me, and that wasn't even a difficult word. Confederated villages of Lishan by flying their flag permanently at City Hall, and
Whereas the Whereas the Bay Area is home to a large population of indigenous Americans, including people from the Southwest, Great Plains, and Eastern Woodlands of what is now called the United States, as well as indigenous Americans from Central and South America and other countries around the world, and
Whereas indigenous people in the Bay Area are leading important efforts to reawaken indigenous languages, restore and protect the landscape, and protect sacred spaces for the benefit of all people, and
Whereas the state of California has acknowledged its genocidal policies towards indigenous people, beginning immediately upon the founding of the state and continuing into the recent past with public boarding schools for indigenous children, and
whereas all too often, information and education about the history of settler colonialism in our area hides its cruelty and genocidal intent, while incorrectly implying that indigenous people have vanished from our community, and
whereas AUSD values tremendously the contributions of our indigenous identified student, staff, and community members, and
whereas AUSD teaching staff from our elementary, middle, and high schools have, over the past year and a half, collaborated with the Lishan Nation and the Segurite Land Trust to create the Lishan Nation Curriculum Collective and to write new curriculum for our schools that uplifts the history and current successes of the Lishan Nation. Curriculum which has received positive feedback from both the Lishan Nation and our students, and
whereas AUSD teaching staff from our elementary, middle, and high schools have, over the past 6 months, been working with community leaders at the Giltrek Community Farm in a project funded partly by the City of Albany's soda tax, where students can study ecology, food systems, and indigenous sovereignty, including the culture and the values of the Lishan Nation.
whereas the leadership of the Lishan Nation this past spring honored Albany High School by visiting the site, reviewing our work, and making note of a number of steps that the high school could take to come into correct relationship with the Lishan Nation, and
whereas Indigenous Peoples Day was celebrated as a national holiday on October 14th, 2024, and the month of November is designated as Native American Heritage Month at a state and federal level.
now therefore be it resolved that the Albany Unified School District's Governing Board of Education does hereby proclaim the month of November as Native American Heritage Month, recognizing and honoring Native American students and staff in an environment that honors their cultures and that welcomes their participation in every school space.
be it further resolved, AUSD applauds the ongoing work of our staff, students, and community members to increase awareness of the Lishan Nation, its work, and the broader movement of indigenous sovereignty, and specifically encourages district schools and teachers to commemorate this occasion with appropriate instructional materials and activities.
Okay. If there's any public comment on this, please come up to the podium.
I've never done this before, so I'm not sure. Do I need to identify myself? No. Okay. Well, as a mother of 4 children who went through the Albany Unified School District, and as a recently retired KALB professor who taught in the English department indigenous North American literature and cultures, I just want to speak in support of this proclamation. It's a small step, but it's an important one. It increases acknowledgement of what so often has been denied or obscured. And I'm really happy to hear that this will be becoming more and more a part of the curriculum to give an honest and inclusive account of our history.
Thank you.
Thank you for recognizing the work that we've been doing. And I just want to encourage you that along with encouraging teachers to do things in the classroom, that we had hoped that the board would encourage the administration to follow up on the requests that the LaShawn Nation made of Albany High School, which I think are easily generalized to our other sites. And those requests in specific were that we fly the LaShawn Nation flag at our school sites, and that we have land acknowledgement on all of our websites, and that we look towards having some artwork at the high school mural that would recognize the history and the local, the urban landscape, the indigenous landscape that surrounds Albany High. It's important for us to follow up on those requests that have been made, and I'm hoping that board members will act to agendize those.
And I just want to follow up on that. In the past, a board member had wanted to bring those, and we feel that because this is a proclamation and there's no action, we wanted to make sure that we could have the discussion about it and make it an action item. Thank you. So that we could do it in the right format. And then for the art at the schools, the board is in the process of writing a board policy on how we will sort of do more permanent art projects at our school sites. And so that was the reason we wanted to just make sure that that fell into it, so that everybody sees these as a real celebration. And we didn't do it without the right recognition. So that's why. We will repeat that at the end of the agenda for future agenda items. Okay, oh, yeah.
Hi, my name's Laura Callan, and I'm here as the parent of an Albany High School sophomore, and I'm also a member of the LaShawn Nation Curriculum Collective, and I've worked pretty closely with Miriam and Darren McNally on some really incredible work at the high school. And so I just want to also speak in favor of this proclamation, really urge you to adopt it in its entirety. It feels, as was said just earlier, like it's a small step, but it's also incredibly important for the recognition that it gives Indigenous people, particularly in light of the way that they have been so erased in virtually every realm of our culture, including education, but also the way that this proclamation can lift up the exciting work that is starting to happen more and more through LaShawn Nation Curriculum Collective and in other spaces. So by passing this proclamation, I think you're also lifting up and helping to make happen many other important things. So really appreciate you considering this, and again, really encourage you to pass it. Thanks.
Sorry, there was one other thing that was sent that I don't want to miss, so I apologize for this. There's a lot of things in places this evening with all the different things that we had to change. I don't have that one, so I can't get it up. So I just want to appreciate everyone who worked hard on helping us to craft this proclamation. This one had more community involvement than some of our other ones, and we really are appreciative of that and the hard work of all of our teachers who are continuing to make sure that this is happening in all of our classrooms. Okay, we are going to have our student board member reports.
All right. At the high school, homecoming just started. This is our first day, or actually yesterday. And there are sports prelims this week all during lunch. Today was dodgeball. Next week we'll have all the spirit days and all the sports finals. And then homecoming will end on the 2nd of November with a dance from 7 to 10 p.m. in the Albany High Gym. This week is Red Ribbon Week, which is hosted by Albany High School's Tobacco Use Prevention Education. And there's a bunch of information that's going to be shared to the students daily about tobacco use prevention. And then finally from the high school, this Saturday, October 26th, is the PSAT for juniors who previously enrolled.
At Albany Middle School, the 6th graders will have a Halloween party, and then Sunday, November 17th, is the AMS Arts and Crafts Fair from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m.
At Cornell Elementary, this Friday, the 25th, Cornell has a rainbow-colored spirit day, and then on Friday evening, the PTA is hosting a movie night where families can come and watch The Addams Family in the multi-purpose room from 6 to 7:30 p.m.
Britain has their annual Chalk It Up this Saturday, October 26th, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m.
And finally, at Albany Children's Center, there's a PATT meeting this Thursday, October 24th at 5:30 p.m. on Zoom. And on Halloween, there will be a parade starting at 3 p.m. And families can come and watch their students wear costumes and do a parade around the yard. And the preschool will be open Veterans Day, November 11th. And that concludes our report.
Wonderful, thank you. So many exciting things happening. We will now take public comment for matters that are not on the agenda. If you have a public comment and you're here in person, please come up to the center podium. If you have a public comment in our virtual audience, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, we are going to move on. This is where we've moved our action items. So these are item 13A and 13B that have now become items, I guess, A, B, and 8B and C, we could call them. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so Director Jaffe will come share information with us about the Independent Contractor Services Agreement with NV Construction for the Americans with Disabilities Act compliant modifications at Cornell Elementary School. So he will give us more detailed information about the scope of the work as well as what is currently being planned and what our next steps are. Thank you, Director Jaffe.
Thank you, Dr. Shin. Thank you, Board of Trustees, public. I'm Scott Jaffe, Director of Maintenance and Operations for the district. This item before the board is for mandated modifications to the Cornell restrooms. This is coming from DSA and was initiated by the playground renovations that we did, and they examined the condition of the restrooms and are requiring us to make ADA upgrades to those restrooms. But before I outline the details of that work, I wanted to make a few comments. I brought this item to this meeting for a few different reasons. One is that it is required. We are going to have to do this work. As I say, it was contingent on the playground renovations being approved. Secondly, there's time restrictions associated with these improvements. We were supposed to do it within 1 year of completing the playground renovations. And lastly, the timing was to try to get the work done during winter break so that students wouldn't be impacted by the construction. And that being said, my failure was in not recognizing or really understanding, truly understanding the impact that this would have on the student population and the distress that it would cause. I'm now more finely tuned to those concerns, and while I know that we need to increase the number of of fixtures because we're going to be removing some, I was doing that on a sort of a separate track, a separate timeline, and I've revised my thinking on that. So I want to talk a little bit about what we can see, what we can look at for options. So if we could look, I have a plan here of Cornell, and I met with Principal Floresca and we tried to identify alternative spaces for improving the restrooms. Here is the restroom that's impacted by the renovations, and as we look here, there's a space that was emptied when we improved the HVAC there. When we did our HVAC modifications, this was a boiler room, so we removed the boiler, and that is now a good-sized space that has access to water and drainage and water. It also has some of the space is taken up by electrical panels, so if we use that space, we would need to probably put up a wall to separate the electrical panels. But that I think is a good opportunity and worth exploring. The principal also suggested, now all of these are going to be explored more thoroughly, possibly an entrance into the restrooms that are already currently here. We were looking for spaces that, as I said, already had sewer connections and water. And then at this end of the campus next to the MPR, there are existing restrooms that could possibly be enlarged, or again, some access doors to the playground. And then I think, Kim, if you scroll up, we can look at the second floor plan. There was one other space. On the second floor, there's an existing restroom here that could possibly be enlarged, and then second floor students might have access to that. So those are 4 that we identified as possibilities. I have since engaged an architect. We're going to be doing a walkthrough next week, and his contract is to examine the feasibility of these spaces, as well as explore any other spaces that we might not have identified. And you know, architects are good at that, figuring out how to change spaces. So once we have those options in hand, once he provides those proposals, I'd like to see a period of public comment and input on that, so that we can determine the best option to again replace and maybe even increase the number of restrooms currently at the site. After that, once we've decided on a direction, it would go into design development. It would have a period of DSA approvals, permitting, contractor selection, and then if we can fast track it, and I think we can, we would be ready. It would be ideal to be ready for construction in summer of 2025. So my thinking is to make sure that the students aren't negatively impacted by reducing the fixtures, that we postpone the existing restroom modification until we can do them concurrently with the improvements in the summer of 2025. So how does that affect the DSA timeline to get this work done within a year of the playground? Well, I made a few calls and looked into that, and one avenue is that we can begin construction, and then if we pause it, we get a whole nother year to complete that work. So what I was going to suggest is, I'm sorry, Kim, could we have that plan again? Kim, there's one more point. Included in the restroom renovations, which is to provide increased ADA access. So there we go. Yeah, scroll back up to the first floor. Great. So as I mentioned, these are the restrooms that are impacted, and we'll look more closely at what the impact will be to those restrooms. But included in the requirements are changes to the drinking fountains that are just outside the restrooms on the playground, and the ramps that are currently in place to lead up to those restrooms. We need to make some changes to the handrails. So what I was going to suggest is is doing that part of the construction. I know there has been concern about the drinking fountains at Cornell, and these are to be replaced with a high-low drinking fountain and a water bottle filler. So if we can do that work, we would begin construction on the project and then extend the life of the term that we have to complete it. And then, so that's sort of my thinking on how we can approach this with the least impact to the students. And now I just wanted to kind of explain what we're being asked to do in these restrooms. So Kim, if we could put the modification plan up, please.
While we're waiting, can you tell us what date did we get the final approval on the playground? Like, what's our working from date?
It's from when we completed it, which was spring of last year.
Okay.
So we haven't, as of now, we have until spring of this year.
Okay, so we're really talking about like 2 months that we're going to be over the timeline. Like if we didn't.
If we didn't do anything, yeah.
Right, not that we wanted to.
And even then, I think it would take a little bit of time for them to, process I don't know the official, like the termination of the project, and then we'd have to extend it. So there would be red tape. Okay, I'll bring it up a little bit more. So there's the restrooms now. You can see in black is the existing restrooms. In red are the fixtures that they're asking us to remove. So on the girls' restroom side, we would have to remove one of the stalls and all 4 of these sinks to meet the required 44 inches of clearance in this space, and then the amount of clearance you need here at the end to be able to turn around. And then on the boys' side, we would have to remove 2 urinals and all 4 of the sinks, again, to make the appropriate clearances that are required. And then if you could scroll up just a little bit more, Kim, please, thanks. In the existing ADA restrooms, they want us to remove the sinks there as well, and the fixtures that are on the walls, the hand dryers. Again, this is just to provide enough space for wheelchair access. And then the sinks that are removed would be replaced in this space between the ADA bathroom and the other bathroom with it's a quad fountain, quad wash station. So it's actually, each side of these has 4 wash stations. This is sort of the trend. This is where we're headed with restrooms these days, because they are more water efficient and easier to maintain. And so that's how we would replace these sinks in the restroom. So those are the things that happen inside the restroom according to this plan. So that's sort of where we are. I welcome questions and any other clarification that you'd like.
I just have one technical question. Will we run into any issues with the construction company as far as starting the project and then having that pause time and then starting again? Do we anticipate any?
So I've asked them to rewrite the quote to just include the drinking fountains and the handrails. So we would see another proposal, a separate proposal coming just for that. And then we would go to, once we have the full scope of renovating the other space to provide more bathrooms, then we would go to bid for that again.
Okay, so just to make sure I'm really clear, right now in the space where you're talking about putting those quad sinks in, there's nothing in that space right now. It's just empty space in our bathroom.
I believe that's right, yes.
Okay, so there's
It's sort of a.
like right when you look in that
sort of an
side
entry.
door.
Yeah, it goes out, one door goes out to the playground, and then either door goes to the restrooms.
I will say, those quad sinks sound great for water efficiency. I'm just envisioning right away paper towels clogging the whole bottom of it and an overflow in there, and then there's no sinks. So I just feel like as we consider these changes, you know, do we really need to look at our cleaning schedule or anything on those? Just I feel like that type of sink seems to invite that in public places. I don't know why. More than the little sinks, which are already challenging. I also just want to say I really appreciate your further thought into this. I think this is what I was pushing for in the agenda meeting. Was it's really challenging when we have to get to like this far of a point. Like, okay, we're putting it on the agenda, but we weren't actually really prepared. And I appreciate the timeline that we are working with in reality. But I think if we can come with these more comprehensive approaches and plans, we can not have these difficult moments of having to say, okay, hey, we're gonna remove toilets and sinks and sorry. So I appreciate that we got there. I think that this is a good learning experience for next time. We can do that in advance of putting anything out on an agenda or in public. Yeah. Any other? Yeah.
It's just a comment. It's a Director Jaffe appreciation post. Thank you for listening to community members and people who were concerned. Thank you for pivoting. Thank you for all of your thought and planning into, you know, being creative and thinking out of the box. I mean, when you said if we start it and then we stop it, then we get into a new year, I was like, that's awesome. Like that's so creative and thoughtful. So I just thank you. I know that it wasn't an easy task that you were given, and I think that this is a really great result that asks for and makes space for community feedback while also being legally compliant, while also, you know, doing the things that are most you know, have to happen right now. And I appreciate all the thinking that must go into making that happen for us.
Thank you, and I'm happy to take all of the credit for that. However, we do have a consultant from DCA who does help me with some of these larger problems.
I'm sure you do a great job working with them.
Yes, thanks for your flexibility. I appreciate it. Just to also manage my expectations, so target summer 2025. When should we think about, just roughly, I'm not going to hold you to a date, you can give me a couple months of when we might be able to see the next sort of proposals so we can start to think about what public comment and that sort of thing looks like, just to get it fixed in my brain.
I'll be able to answer that question better when I've had the walkthrough with the architect, because I think it depends a lot on how complicated the upgrades are going to be. You know, if there's some simple solutions in those spaces that we found, the approval process at DCA, which is usually the largest chunk of time in a project like this, if it's an over-the-counter approval without a lot of structural, then it's pretty straightforward. If we get into structural issues, or you know, earthquake issues, then that review process could take a couple of months with DSA, Department of State Architects. But as I say, I'm going to do my best to fast track it.
So in all my poking around of spaces at Cornell, of which I have done lots, I did not ever know that there was another bathroom upstairs, which is great to know that there actually already exists one up there. I'm sure it doesn't get a lot of use because I'm sure a lot of people don't know that it's up there.
It's part of the what used to be the DO. In fact, I think it might have been the director's office at one time, in the director's restroom.
Well, they're currently being used by us.
Okay, well, so some people are utilizing.
Yes.
Oh, that's right.
But we're happy to share with students.
Actually, yeah, I think we should make sure we don't have to do that. We need adult restrooms and we need student restrooms, and we need places for people to use that are for those things, because we don't want any,
And credit too to Principal Floresca, who helped me, you know, identify these spots.
Nice. All right, we're going to take public comment on this one and then circle back to the board one more time. I think just before we do that, I want to clarify. So it sounds like we've changed what we would be approving this evening, and what we're instead approving is the work to begin on the the railings on the ramps and the water fountains.
I think for now, we would be tabling this item until you bring us a new contract, correct?
I think that's, yeah, I'm not,
The safest course, that would be.
you
the
know
safest
procedure better
course.
than I, but I think that I need to actually bring that to
Yeah.
the next meeting
Okay.
and then still try to stay on that timeline for getting it done during the winter break.
Our next meeting is not until November 19th. That's why I'm like, where do we really sit with this? Are we using the same company to do that work as we would be using to do this work? We could do a special meeting if we need to for one item. My thought is, if we can approve starting this work with the scope changed, I think we can do that because it's all part of, did this contract originally include the water fountains and the?
Yes,
Okay.
we could approve this and change the scope. I mean, that might be a way to go. Then they could start procurement.
We can approve the contract to work with them and then change the scope of the work.
I think for procedural sake, it's better to table this item until we come back with a corrected contract, because otherwise we're saying we're approving the contract as is. And that we're entering into a legal agreement with this agency to do the work that is documented in that contract. So I think it would be best if we table the item.
Let's take public
I
comment.
mean, unless Marina.
And I would,
Sorry.
Marie, our HR director is like, let's do this. Hold on, I'm gonna read, while we have public comment, I'm just gonna read back through what's in here to make sure, and then we can come back to that part, okay? Hello.
It's hard being short. My name is Mikkel, and I am a student council representative from Cornell Elementary. I am bringing with me a petition of 250 signatures. Yes, 250 signatures from Cornell students. Everyone who has signed it agrees with me that we have a problem. The problem is the student restrooms. When I walked into a classroom to tell people about the petition, the moment I mentioned petition for better bathrooms, they immediately started pulling out pens and pencils to sign it. I have counted myself, and Marin has 4 boy restrooms and 4 girl restrooms. Ocean View has 3 boy restrooms, 3 girl restrooms, and 3 all-gender restrooms. Cornell has 1 boy restroom and 1 girl restroom. There's a difference. Cornell Elementary demands fairness. We need to fix this problem. This needs to be solved, and we need to solve it. 250 Cornell students agree with me on this. We cannot let them down. Thank you, and have a nice night.
It's okay, I'm just gonna have him take my place for the rest of the night. Thank you, Mikkel. If there are any other public comments on this?
I guess I told Mikkel I wouldn't make a comment because it's kind of weird to have mother-son commenting, but this is a little bit of a different comment. And I do want to first say thank you. Thank you for listening. It's often been my experience working with you that you do listen when the community comes and raises something, and we appreciate that, so thank you. One thing I do want to say is that as a Cornell parent who sort of watched renovations happen in fits and starts, I really ask that as we make these decisions, we think about it as a whole, and we think about what the long-term vision for that whole is. Absolutely, these bathrooms need to happen fast and soon. They are a disaster, they are a problem. But I am asking that we really think about that whole site and where it's headed and a bigger vision for that, and that vision is thoughtful. So we're not just plugging problems every time they happen. And so that's my ask, in addition to the rest of this. Thank you.
Okay, if there's any other public comment in here, please come up to the podium, and if you're in the virtual audience, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, we can come back to our thought. Sorry, I've been trying to also just see what the wording is. It's like really small and then really huge. Can you point us, Dr. Jaffe, to the place that, like, in the contract outlines the specific scope of the work under this contract, just so that we would know?
So I don't have that document with me. It's probably in the folder, the BOE folder, but the scope of work is to supply all of the materials and labor to remove those fixtures that I mentioned, repair all the walls and surfaces, replace the fountain, and upgrade the handrails. So it's the whole DSA required package.
We're all reading through the backup, sorry.
Page 3 of the, in the
Yeah. Here?
independent contractor services agreement, after all the legal stuff, page 3 of the RFP outlines, I think, the scope of work. Keep scrolling.
Page 3 of the RFP.
Attached to the
Yeah. Super fun. Okay. Oh, I see. Okay. So I'll just start reading them and then I'm sure we'll be able to pull it up. But it says the general scope of work and other requirements. Demo existing lavatories, urinals, water fountain, and ambulatory stall. Remove existing FRP panels and replace with new. Cut and cap plumbing. Patch back and finish to match existing gypsum board. Install new quad wash fountains, which I feel like could happen over the break. If we needed to, and it is the guardrails are in here in the high-low, so we can approve this and just know that our timeline is changed. This has all of those, modify handrail extensions to meet current code, field surveying layout is required to accomplish the work, haul and dispose of demolition of materials. So I think that's what, if we approve it, it includes those parts that Director Jaffe said, but we would have to say that.
I think the technicality comes down to whether or not there's going to be a change in the cost of services, because I know in past contracts you've mentioned if we push things back, it could potentially increase the cost of the contract. I don't know if we expect that with this one or not, especially if we're starting in spring, pausing, and then coming back in the summer. That's the only reason I would caution with whether or not we approve this as is with the updated, I don't know.
I would say it's a good point, Trustee Khan. If we approved it as is, it would allow them to procure some of the long lead items. And if there were, say, since we do prevailing wage, if wages were to go up between now and the time the work was accomplished, we could then do an amendment.
Because we're gonna have to do this bathroom work. Like, we know we have to make the bathrooms ADA compliant. There is no wiggle room on that. That's what I've been saying since we started this conversation. Long ago, last year, we said, we know we're going to have to do this, but if this is the solution, then. And if the solution you come back with is, hey, if we go with tankless toilets or we embed those into the wall and we can shrink our stalls and still get the square footage and we don't have to add new bathrooms, maybe that's our solution. But as long as we.
Sorry, I have another, not to be Mr. Technical, but the agreement also has an end date on it of January 3rd. Is that Does that become problematic, or you just come in and ask for an extension?
I'm sure we could ask for an extension. I think we could sign this and then, again, amend it.
Okay, if we decide, here's another thing. If we decide, okay, go ahead.
I'm usually the last person who has, but the Brown Act points. But from a legal standpoint, I wouldn't generally advise someone to enter into a contract that they don't intend to perform under. So if we approve it, then the district is signing it saying we're going to do this thing for this amount of money, and then we all know that we're not really going to do that thing. So, I mean, we're going to do parts of it, and we're going to do other parts later for a different amount of money on a different time frame than what's in here. Like I
think that if we proceed, if we execute this contract, yes, we would be committed for NV Construction to do this scope of work, and then when we have a new scope of work for the amended other additional bathrooms, that would be a separate contract that would go to bid, just for that scope of work.
Right, so if we sign this contract, it's just not what we actually intend to do.
Well, I mean, it is.
I mean, not with these terms, not on this time frame.
Not with the timeline.
With that,
Okay.
not with that amount of money,
Is there any way to bring this, so we can bring it back on November 19th, which is fine? That probably precludes any work from happening over the winter break.
Well, that feels cleaner.
Yeah.
The only procurement for that would be the high-low water filler, and that's a pretty short lead time.
Okay.
Yeah, if we couldn't, if for some reason, if the contractor says there's no way I can do it in that short time frame, then I would push it to the next break, the April break.
Okay.
February.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that seems like it would be reasonable to go with Trustee Khan's original.
It seems cleaner to me.
Yeah.
I'm just, again, not the Brown Act expert. Can we have a special meeting if we need to approve this so that we can actually move forward and do it on the December break timeline? Is there a reason we can't do that?
If they
It's fine with me.
Yeah, if they order it, but if they also, we've done this before, like if we order it and for some reason have to do a retroactive contract to cover that cost, but I feel like out of our funds, we could order it. We just have to approve contracts. We don't have to approve you spending money to buy that high-low water fountain, right?
That's another way to go. Yeah, when I come back with a revised quote, I could do the procurement of the high-low, and they just do the installation.
Great, because then we'll already have it and we'll just say, our board's gonna approve this. We've already bought it. Here we go.
Right.
That's an option.
I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we table this item until we have the corrected contract.
Okay.
Okay.
Second.
We're all gonna second it. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so let's see that one again on November 19th and we'll clean all those bits up. Bye, Julian.
Bye, thank you.
Are you staying with me? She's taking you. Sorry. You get to go home. Bye. Okay. I said I was having a lot of moving pieces with kids out this afternoon. Okay. Great. We have a second item. We just moved both yours so you don't have to wait until the end.
Okay.
Yeah. The second item is in relationship to the Albany Children's Center.
There's a portable that needs to be removed, and Director Jaffe will give us more information about why it needs to be removed and also the scope of the work. Thank you.
Okay, yes, so at Albany Children's Center, there are two portables on the premises that are basically nearing end of life. We did we had our hazmat investigative team come in and do some research into those buildings and found that room 13, due to some water damage from a couple of years ago, has basically a lot of demolition that needs to be done in order to remove saturated and unstable timbers in the walls and in the floors. They also found asbestos in the floor tiles that needed to be removed and about half of the subfloor. And they gave us proposals for either removing that material, and then we would be set to replace it and basically rebuild the structure, or just demolish it. And in conversation with Josh Reed, the director there, who advised me that that room is not used as a classroom, and looking at the facilities report assessment that we did last year, and that also said that those rooms were end of life and that we would be better off with a new building. I'm bringing forward the proposal to remove that building altogether. And this company that we use on site, we have a client master agreement with, so they are prepared to do all of the asbestos abatement and demolition and removal of that unit in one weekend. So that's, it would not impact the students, and then we have a little more open space there to decide what to do with it.
Any board questions, comments?
I move to approve.
Hold on, any public comment?
Oh, public comment, right.
She's ready. Any public comment on this item? Okay, a motion?
I move to approve the independent contractor services agreement between AUSD and First Onsite for portable classroom removal at ACC.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Okay, that one passes as well. Let's remove as many portables at their end of their life as possible. Especially if they have asbestos.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Jaffe, and thanks for your flexibility, everybody. Okay, approval of the consent calendar. We will take questions or a motion. I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the consent calendar is approved. On we go. We are now, okay, exciting part of the night. Here we go. The moment we've all been waiting for. Oh goodness, here goes. I gotta get, sorry. No, I just have to, there's a script and I'm gonna read it and I need to pull it back up because that screen closed itself down. But here we go. I have too many email accounts. That's basically where we are at this moment. Okay, here we are. The board will now take up consideration of item 10A, public employee appointment. As contained in the brief and general description of item 10A in the agenda, the board will be discussing a proposed employment contract with Sarah Stone for the position of Superintendent of Albany Unified School District effective December 1st, 2024. A copy of the proposed contract is available to the public if you'd like to review it. It's with Marina here. We're going to ask that you review it, and then it stays with her. It will be uploaded to the agenda. The board just had a final discussion about all those because we moved our timeline up on this, so we appreciate the flexibility. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, we will close the public comment and the board will discuss item 10A. We can take questions or comments, or we can have a motion to approve the proposed employment contract. I'd like to, okay, so I'll say that, well, we're deciding who's going to make this motion. This is what we argue about up here. Member student board, you guys can make motions too, it's okay. We worked really hard. We had Dr. Will's contract that we worked from as a base, and we made some changes and things that I think are, they're more representative of like a contract in 2024 in Albany Unified School District, and I am really appreciative of the hard work of Josh Stevens, who's our labor negotiator attorney, and he worked with me a lot on this, and I think that we have a really strong contract for a really strong candidate. So, are you ready?
I'm not going to speak for a long time because I'm trying to hold myself together. I just want to say, I just want to acknowledge that the circumstances under which we had to look for a new superintendent were devastating, and despite that, that we are so fortunate to have the opportunity to work with such an impressive person. I know I speak for all of us here when I say that we are really excited to bring you into our district. And thank you to the community again for taking part in the panel so that we were able to have a much larger group of people see how wonderful this candidate is.
And two things. Vice President Hopwood is really sad that she could not be here tonight, but she wants to let everybody know that she fully supports this, and if she was here to vote, she would be voting absolutely yes on this contract. And just a part of the contract that I think is really important to us, as we've had so many shifts and changes over the past few months, is that Dr. Evans is going to continue working sort of in a different consulting capacity, but to keep initiatives and things going that have been started since it's been a short time. And I think that's really a wonderful step for our school district.
Just going to echo the gratitude for the community panel and everyone that's helped us on this entire journey. It's been rough, but also we've made a decision that I think we are all very confident and proud of, and we're excited to welcome Sarah as our new superintendent. And with that, I will make a motion to approve this contract. So I move to approve item 10A. Got to read it exactly how it's stated. So I move to approve the public employee appointment superintendent of schools.
I second the motion.
All right. All in favor? Oh, wait, should we roll? Do we need to roll call this one?
Yes, please.
Okay, I was going to ask that. Let's do it.
Student Board Member Shepherd?
Yes.
Student Board Member Deotar?
Yes.
Trustee Mahoney?
Aye.
Trustee Khan?
Yes.
Trustee Boyd?
Yes.
President Davidson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So the item is passed by a vote of all of us. Congratulations, Ms. Stone, on being appointed to the Albany Unified School District as our next superintendent. And she's here this evening. This is our new superintendent, Sarah Stone.
I'm beyond excited. So do you want me to?
Please, go ahead.
I'll be brief. I know how late these meetings can be. First of all, I just want to appreciate, as you all shared, the community input and the community experience, especially with the student board members being a part of it. This entire experience has been incredible. I feel like I have found my home and my family, and I'm a little emotional. But this is just an incredible, incredible opportunity, and I cannot wait to begin and to serve this community. And I look forward to meeting everyone, having a lot of time and space to learn more and to hear everyone's ideas and thoughts. Just looking so forward to it. So thank you so much. I do have my husband here tonight too, so my husband Tom. But thank you.
We are working on some community receptions and other events that will be announced shortly, and there are also some cookies at the back. If you would like cookies, please take a moment to enjoy those. And also, if you want to have any more information about Ms. Stone, Marina has her resume and her cover letter over here. Again, those are staying in the room, but you're welcome to read them. All confidential information has been redacted. So we have that covered. Okay, with that, we are going to adjourn that item. And now we get to have our 24-25 school plans for student achievement from Albany Middle School and Albany High School and McGregor High School. I believe we're welcoming Principal Mapes and Principal McNally for this item.
All right, well, before we begin, I just want to welcome Ms. Stone on behalf of the district leadership team as well as the site leadership team. We are so excited to have you, and we're just really looking forward to working with you. Thank you. All right, with that said, I had to message Executive Director Brill because she's in another meeting, and I just needed her to come quickly after this. We thought it was going to be a little later. Okay. Oh, God, okay. All right.
We can always do our reports first.
Okay.
And then if she needs more time.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that accommodation. All right. Great. All right. This item is to present our 2024-25 school plan for student achievement for our secondary schools. We have our illustrious principals, Mr. Eric Mapes of Albany Middle School and Mr. Darren McNally, principal of Albany High and McGregor High School, here to present their plans. As you recall, at our last meeting, our elementary leaders presented their plans for Cornell, Marin, and Ocean View Elementary Schools. And at that time, Director Sinclair also presented comprehensive information about the components of the SIPSA as well as the development process. So tonight I will just briefly review the purpose and goals of the school site plan and its relationship to the cycle of continuous improvement, and then turn it over to our illustrious principals to present their plans. Slides, please. Oh, she made it. Okay. All right, next slide, please. Okay, how about next slide? All right, so the school plan for student achievement is the school level strategic plan that is aligned to the district level strategic plan known as the Local Control Accountability Plan, otherwise known as the LCAP. And for high schools, we also align with the WASC plan, which the high school is currently working on. And the purpose of the SIPSA is to coordinate the action services, strategies, and activities of the school site personnel to improve student achievement and other measurable student outcomes. And the greatest goal is to allocate resources to improve student academic achievement and outcomes by implementing research-based strategies and interventions for identified groups of students as informed by our data. Oh yeah, we didn't get to eat our cookies, right? We're excited and nervous at the same time. Sorry. Okay, next slide, please. So one of our greatest objectives is to work within the cycle of continuous improvement, and the SIPSAs and the LCAPs are a prime example of the cycle of continuous improvement process. Around the springtime of each year, and for the 24-25 school year plan development, this happened this past spring, our site teams and leaders got together in order to review and analyze data that was related to the 22 and 23 school year, because our 24 school year data was not available at that time, and develop the plan that they will be presenting to you tonight. And so right now what they're doing at the school sites, they're in the doing phase of the cycle of continuous improvement. They're actually implementing the plan. So the actions and services that you will hear about tonight are exactly what is in the plan and what our site teams are working on to improve outcomes for our students. And around this time of the school year, we are also able to gather most recent data, which is the 2024 KASP data, as well as first quarter's fast bridge data, which they will be analyzing and reviewing during the studying phase, and to make decisions about what to do in the next phase, which is the acting phase. Will they make adjustments to the plan? Again, based on student outcomes, we are going to decide, are our actions effective? And if they are effective, we will continue to move forward with the plan as it is. If we see that we need to make any improvement to the plan, then we're going to make some adjustments. And if we see that they're not working at all, we're going to abandon that plan and come up with a new plan. So that's what we do during the acting phase. So again, this is a cyclical process that is ongoing and something that we do annually in order to ensure that our SIPSAs are updated to meet the needs of our students. Okay, with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to our talented elected principal, Mr. Eric Mapes, to present his middle school plan.
Thank you, Dr. Shin. Next slide, please. So the SIPSA plan is always reviewed every year by the school site council and the leadership team, the district department chairs at Albany Middle. And so it's a collaboration. And before I go any further, I want to congratulate and welcome Superintendent Stone. I'm very excited to have you as our leader, so welcome. I'm glad we're doing this together because Darren and Mr. McNally, Principal McNally, maybe someday. We've been working more and more closely together over the past couple of years, and we realize that this is a 6-12 continuum that our students are under. So what we do is we are trying to lay the foundation for our students, so when they go to the high school, they have a strong foundation in English language arts and math, but also they've experienced a comprehensive middle school where they've been allowed to try clubs, extracurricular activities, leadership. So when they get to the high school, the best thing I can hear from my students come back is when they say they enjoyed middle school. Because if you've ever gone through middle school, which all of us have, it is not easy between the ages of 11 and 14. So these are just some of the results of some of the assessments that we've had. I do want to thank the teachers at our school site and the support staff who work tirelessly every day to work with our kids and get them to the point where they are ready for high school. This is just one metric. These are some of the metrics that we are being judged on. But I do want to say that our CASP scores really did not change from the year prior to this to 22-23. We did see some improvement with our African American Black students and socioeconomically disadvantaged students. Both increased by 12 points, but they're still too low. Our EL students and our special education services, students receiving special education services, decreased. That's alarming, something we need to work on. But overall, we are addressing those. Can you move up a little bit? So if you look at our English language acquisition increased by 15 points, which means our students are progressing in their learning of the English language and getting to the point where they will be reclassified as fluent English proficient students. So that's a really great thing. Our cohort never really stays the same. It's changing from year to year because we have students moving out of EL and we have new students moving into our school quite often during the school year. Can you move up a little bit? So identified needs, we need to address our EL students and our students receiving special education services. And we need to work on reading comprehension instruction and math support for those students and those students in the opportunity achievement gap. I don't like grouping students. I think we should, at our school site, we need to address students on more of an individual basis. So that's actually what we're doing in some of our actions. We're looking at data, but we're looking at specific students and how we're going to target those specific students to help them mature both in their academics and social emotionally. So we do provide intervention classes in math and English language arts. We also provide something called Cobra Study for students who need additional support with homework. We are evaluating those to the effectiveness and deciding on how we might need to modify those this year and years to come. We are also working on identifying the students who are in levels 1 and 2 on the CASP and how we can support them specifically. So those are some of the many things that we're doing. I do want to say we look at a lot of different data. We look at the FastBridge scores, which are much higher than the CASP scores. That's why I didn't put them on. We also are looking at students who receive Ds and Fs and working on reducing that number of students. We look at the students who the number of referrals that some students might have, their attendance. So we're putting them all together to try to get a really good story of who our kids are and how we can help them, and that includes bringing in their parents. Next, can you move up, please? Slide 2 is about supporting the whole child. This information is from 21-22, so it is during a time when we were still wearing masks, many of us. We weren't completely into having all of our dances like we just had on Friday night outdoors in the courtyard. So we were having them walk certain ways. So we weren't where we are now. So I'm interested in comparing this data to the data from this past year. The same is true with the chronic absenteeism. It's way too high from the 22-23 school year, but a lot of our students were staying home because they had COVID and they were supposed to stay home for 5 to 10 days. But overall, if you can move us up a little bit. Next one, please. Can you slide it up? Oh, I'll just keep going. So some things we want to work on. We're working on improving our overall attendance, and it's not just students who are chronically absent. It's students who miss 5 days, 7 days, and really educating our students and their families on the importance of being at school. Last year we had 6,555 full-day absences. The goal is to get that under 4,000. We'll see if we can do it. That is something I think being at school is an important piece, is 60% of the puzzle. And then increasing how our students feel connected and safe at school. So some of our actions, we've expanded our extracurricular activities. We have more leadership groups. We have more athletics than we've had in the past. Clubs continue to evolve. We have some really new popular clubs. We have a knitting club that is taken off, and it actually is like 2 classrooms now. Our students are amazing. They want to try new things. They want to be challenged, and it's our job to meet them where they are and then to see them grow. Our care team meets once a week, every Wednesday, and that involves administration, counselors, our school psychologist, our mental health specialist, our restorative justice /wellness center /safe and inclusive school specialist. We all get together and we talk about kids and how we can help them. So that is something that we are now trying to embrace that more and get that information out to the teachers more than in the past. Can you slide up again? The third is communicate and lead together. So last year we increased our PTA by 90 people, and we're even higher this year. Now it is partially because we are at 915 students this year, which is a significant increase from the year before and the year before that. So we have grown by about 140 students in the last 3 years, which is great. I love having kids around, but it's a busy school site. Our staff meetings have been restructured, so we are now meeting as a staff for the first half of our days. Our Thursdays are when we have our collaboration days, so we'll meet as a staff in the beginning and then go to our departments or to our grade level or cross-curricular meetings where staff get together and they talk about the data, they talk about the curriculum. So they're working together on that. The staff, this was also from 21-22, 89% and 83% said they felt safe at school or it was a positive staff working environment. I'd love to see that higher. And that's on me. We need to improve communication between the school site and the families and better communication involvement of all staff members on policies and procedures. Move that up a little bit. So we are continuing our initiatives around culturally relevant teaching, universal design for learning. We have a new staff member who's an expert on that, so we have tapped into that. We are still continuing to work on our multi-tiered systems of support. We are also working on student engagement, working on differentiation because they all tie together. They all come together. Expanded opportunities for parent community involvement. Last year we started our Latinx family, our parent group, and we have our African American parent group. So we're trying to expand our parent opportunities. All of our last PTA meeting was actually in person. We're not doing Zoom anymore. They're all in person. And hopefully we can get more and more people to attend those. We need to get parents back at school. They need to feel like they're needed, which they are. And so that is a responsibility. We've also worked we had conference week, and we had 450 contacts between teachers and parents, whether it was a conference, an email, a postcard, a phone call, somehow communicating both positive and areas of concern. And then our AMS leadership team is looking at specific professional development opportunities. So everything comes together. I'm very proud of the work that goes on at our school. Do we have some areas of growth? Yes. But if we didn't, then where would we go? So I'm excited about where we are. I see my former student up here, and I know we're doing a good thing. And I talked to Darren, and I know how well the kids are working up at the high school. My son's about to graduate from Albany High, and I'm excited for his next step. And so this is really a community effort, and I am proud that we have a comprehensive middle school. So I'm going to pass it on to Mr. McNally.
Thank you very much. So this is the first time I've been in a room with my new boss, so no pressure. I do want to just provide a little bit more context for the Albany High School and the SIPSA with Albany High School. Because, like all high schools in California, we go through the accreditation process through the Western Association of Schools and Colleges. This current school year is our WASC accreditation year, so we're in the middle of our self-study process, and then in early April, we'll have a visit from the self-study committee. At Albany High, we tie our SIPSA process very closely to our WASC accreditation process, and so in that cycle of continuous improvement, we utilize the WASC committee and the WASC process to continually update our SIPSAs. And then when we also have to do progress reports and mid-cycles for our accreditation, those usually just involve a real copy and pasting of our SIPSA process. You'll notice if you really dig into the Albany High School SIPSA, there are 5 different goal areas as opposed to the 3 in many other sites. And that's because we align our SIPSA with the 5 areas from the WASC accreditation process, and then cross-link those then to the different district goals. That's really efficient way to do things, but it does place a little bit more of an emphasis on academics because those are a little bit more of, those are 3 of the 5 areas within the WASC process as well. And I'm sure actually as we get closer to April, you'll get some invites to come meet with our WASC committee and learn more about what's going on at Albany High School. And go ahead, move to the first slide. Before I dig into this, I do really want to recognize our school site council at Albany High, who takes the time with me at least once a month to dig into this data and provide feedback, and it's a really invaluable group of people. And a lot of their work is distilled down into this. So a few of the indicators I do want to look at, we've been looking at our data a little bit differently. And one of the things that we're often trying to do as a high school is break out of academic silos or specific areas and look more at whole students, which unfortunately high schools are not quite as good at with the way that they often function. So one of the things that we looked at is that 68% of our students met the standards in both English language arts and mathematics, which is pretty fantastic. And we actually had 42% of students exceed in both areas, which is also pretty exceptional. But then we still, of course, have students who are not meeting in one of the 2 areas. And then a real focus for us right now is those students who are not meeting in either area. The other thing to remember about data for high school that's different for the other grade bands is we only test students for CASP at the 11th grade level. So this data is only for our current class of 25, the graduating seniors. This hampers a lot of our efforts at the high school because what we end up with is summative data and not data along the way. Though we've just started to look at, with our freshmen, actually the data from their 8th grade assessments. We've actually just started to look at, especially with our English department and then also with our math department as well to get a head start on some of those things. As far as some of the trends that we've noticed, we did see a slight improvement in English language arts from the last year. One thing that was a really encouraging trend that we've also seen for several years is the most current cohort, so the students in the class of 2025, about 1/3 of them who are not at grade level at their last middle school assessment were at grade level by the time they were in 11th grade. So we do see improvements in that area for English language arts pretty consistently, and I have to really give it to my English teachers who really work to hold students to a high expectation and then put in a lot of extra blood, sweat, and tears to support students in reaching those expectations. We did notice a precipitous increase in the performance of students with disabilities, and we're also seeing the same trend in a decrease in students who are English language learners. It's the same trend that Mr. Mapes identified with the middle school students. At this point for the high school, really, English language learners are the only population that have not recovered to pre-COVID levels as far as their academic performance. With math, we actually saw some very similar trends to what we saw with English language arts. We did see an increase with students with disabilities, a noticeable increase. We did unfortunately notice a decrease specifically with Latino students. And we saw that same decrease in performance with English language learners in math as well as English language arts. Go on and move on to the next slide, please. A few other indicators. One of the things that we track at Albany High School is letter grades and letter grades at quarters and semesters. So we did notice about 30% of students had a D or F grade in a course they needed for graduation during mid-semester. Now, many of these students did not end up receiving a D or F at the semester, but it was something that we were tracking because we were concerned about students with lagging performance in the middle of the semesters. Only about 37% of our ELs made progress in their English language acquisition, which was a decrease from the previous year. And then you can scroll down slightly. So some additional information related to the class of 2023 and their outcomes. The Career College Readiness Indicator, which is, if someone could have a favorite California school dashboards indicator, that's my own, because it captures actually quite a few different things, both academic achievement, completion of different types of courses, and so it's a really broad indicator for the different forms of success that we look for in students. That actually increased to what the state of California considers very high, with 72% of our graduating seniors from the class of 2023 meeting that. That was a noticeable increase from the previous year. We also had 74% of our graduating students meet the UC-CSU minimum course requirements. This also was a noticeable increase from previous years, especially considering about 55% of the class of 2023 actually went straight to four-year colleges. So we're graduating students who actually meet all of the minimum requirements for a UC or CSU, many of whom could actually get guaranteed admission to CSU East Bay or San Francisco State. We're actually not electing to go to four-year universities, which is something that we're looking at. And our dropout rate did decrease to 2.4%, which, again, it's a decrease, and it's something we endeavor to want to get to 0%. So you can move on to the next slide. So some things that we're doing. As I said, a major area of focus for us is the performance of EL students, and then also supporting students at a sustained level through an entire semester. Things that we've done is increase ELD support. This has especially taken place in our math program. And our math teachers actually undertook a lot of really impressive work last school year to really focus on their English language learners and what are some supports that those students specifically need. Even though we had budget cuts coming into this year and I had to reduce some teaching staffing, we've actually increased our ELD teacher staffing to provide additional supports for English language learners. We've had multiple staff collaborations specifically focused on English language learners. We've also expanded our tutoring programs and our outside of class support programs and also incorporated parent collaboration as well. We've also continued our programs to have staff focus on intervention for struggling students, as well as improve our methods for identifying struggling students. And we continue to evaluate the different intervention courses and programs that we have developed for efficacy and determine if there are additional changes that might need to be needed there. We currently have intervention programs specifically in math and ELD, and then we have broader intervention programs as well, such as Homework Lab and AVID and several other programs that we continue to evaluate for effectiveness, and we've been able to preserve those programs even through budget cuts. So our next area, school climate. Only about 56% of students feel connected to school. One of the things that we see ongoing that's always a little concerning if you look at the California Healthy Kids data from a cohort perspective is student connectedness to school tends to decline as they come into high school. There's especially a precipitous drop going from middle school to high school that tends to persist. And so one of the things we've really been focusing on is how do we recreate those connections to school. And it's not an amazing coincidence that many of the places we see achievement gaps in our student populations, we also see gaps in sense of school connectedness. Again, this data is a little bit older. So this comes from the spring of 22, I believe. Albany High has done some significant amount of work to increase school connectedness in that time, which I'll talk about a little bit more. And only about 62% of students feel they have a caring adult at school, which is also a little disheartening knowing how many caring adults we have at school. So one of the things that we're focusing on is how do we connect, how do we make sure that's something that students are feeling as well. And again, both of these metrics are lower for some of our populations that we're most focused on trying to support. Our chronic absenteeism last year was at 8.4%. It has been trending down, but it's still noticeably higher than it was pre-COVID. And so we're obviously trying to get that number back to a pre-COVID level. Next slide, thank you. So things we do, increase the attendance and then reduce the outcome disparities between different groups. So starting a little bit over a year ago, we really implemented a real focus on culturally responsive practices with our staff. Albany High, to be honest, was behind a lot of the other sites in getting some of that training, and so we started from a very basic level. And I gotta say, I'm very impressed with what some of my staff has done even in the past year and a half. And that comes from a place of really making sure all students feel seen and connected and welcomed in the classroom, in the practices of their teachers, and in the curriculum. We've worked to really improve some of the school-to-home communication regarding attendance, especially when it comes to the chronic absenteeism. Our focus has really been on many of our students who are chronically absent. It's not a truancy issue. It's other things that are getting in the way of their access to school, and so really partnering with families to really support students in their attendance. We really have worked to maintain our programs that increase a sense of connection and belonging at Albany High School. The most marquee of those programs, of course, is the S3 program at Albany High, which started in the fall of '23. And so that program has really taken off and really created a much stronger sense of connection for many of our students. And then we have also worked to improve our staff collaboration, focused on the students who are not performing well, especially in those underserved populations. And a lot of departments are working at some of their own specific practices, their own curricula, and the different things they can do to improve those things. I can move on to the next slide. So communicating and leading together. So parents have also reported a lower sense of connection and engagement with the school. Again, this is something that we see kind of decline as students move through and parents really move through the different grade bands. But it's also something we've noticed declines since COVID that has not returned. And then staff have also previously reported concerns with implementation of school policies and procedures. This was something that actually came back kind of from the COVID area. This was another thing that was a WASC goal, so these are two things that we really worked to focus on as well. Move on to the next slide. And so we've really tried to increase our communication and engagement with parents. And this has come mostly in the form of a lot of systemic work with administrators and counselors and other school staff members to just more regularly reach out to families, reach out to make some of those connections. And then really increase our understanding and engagement and have more uniform school policies and practices. We've really worked to increase participation at back to school night. And this is one that we don't take attendance at back to school night, but from the number of people in the gym at the beginning of the night, that one has increased significantly actually since the pre-COVID days, which we're really impressed with. And at least from a quick polling of our teachers, they've really noticed that we're seeing a lot more folks come to back to school night. And then just a general increase at school events. And then we've really worked to increase the amount of staff engagement directly with policy development. The best example of that is the current cell phone policy that we have at the high school, which people give me credit for, but quite honestly really came from a lot of impressive work, mostly led by some of our teachers, to really create a uniform school-wide policy. And then something we're always working on is how do we communicate better with our community and our parents about different supports for students. Yeah, so then McGregor High School. So for those that don't know, Albany has two high schools. So McGregor is our continuation school. Legally, it fits under a separate set of frameworks than Albany High does. In practice, McGregor really is part of Albany High. And that's the way we want it to be. We treat McGregor as a school within Albany High School. Legally, it is a separate school. It is a separate program. At this point, every staff member with McGregor also holds a position with Albany High School. and that's actually the way I prefer it to be, because I think actually McGregor as a place really improves the quality of teaching in both schools and both programs. And I'm often very selective about which teachers actually end up at McGregor to work with those students. Go on to the next slide. Just one more thing about McGregor. McGregor went through its WASC accreditation process in the spring of 2023, received a full 6-year accreditation. This is actually older data. The student population has remained consistently 20 to 30 students. This year, at this time, it's actually 13. And McGregor is the only school in the district where we're excited to see declining enrollment because it means those students are being served better in Albany High. And so right now, we're actually really happy that the population of McGregor has stayed lower. It does tend to go up a little bit over the course of a school year and as things happen, so we'll see where that number goes. But the McGregor population has actually decreased, which I'm really excited to see, and it means that those students are receiving even more attention and one-on-one support through the staff of McGregor. The McGregor graduation rate has remained similar to past years. Just something I like to brag about with McGregor. McGregor High School has a higher graduation rate than is average for every high school in the state of California. McGregor actually has a better graduation rate than a lot of comprehensive high schools that people have heard about. And actually, because of a lot of work that we've done to make sure that the students who come to McGregor are the students who are really the best served students by that program, we have had several years recently where McGregor has a higher graduation rate than Albany High. So as principal of both schools, I don't know how to feel about that, but it is something that we're really excited about because it does mean that we take a population that is 100% off track to graduate, and oftentimes 100% of them reach graduation, which we're really excited about. Chronic absenteeism with McGregor does remain an ongoing issue. And that was one problem that we actually made pretty significant improvements on pre-COVID, and post-COVID has actually really surged to being something of a challenge again. But again, these are many of the students who, when they start, they feel a real lack of connection to school and often have challenges even walking in the door, and we're still working on getting them to graduation. So some things we're working on with McGregor is just having consistent individualized supports for all students. McGregor, because it does draw its teaching staff from Albany High, there can be a little bit of a disconnect between the different staff members, so we've really focused on building a really strong cohort of McGregor teachers. And then at this point, our main concern is improving attendance rates and consistent attendance for those students. Some of these things have evolved really a focus on a sense of belonging. Many McGregor students, if you ask them why they're in McGregor, their number one answer is actually not feeling like they're part of Albany High. Not about anything to do with their academics or anything along those lines. So we really focus on trying to recognize each student, build those connections, build those collaborations with our students, and then we also echo that in how we work with our staff. So we've also worked around improving conversations with families around attendance. The McGregor team meets regularly, actually at this point bi-weekly. I have also assigned Mr. Pierce to work more closely with the McGregor team. So the McGregor also now has a built-in supportive administrator as well. And we've really tried to even increase more and more that sense of connection in a team with students and families to come up with ways for students to earn credit for high school graduation purposes. So with that, I think I'm done.
That was it? We're good? Okay. Wow. All right. I'm just used to the early on SIPSAs that were like, we went over everything in lots of detail. This is so helpful because we can review it all in here, but that's really nice.
To be honest, we were a little insecure about how short this was because we were also so used to the exhaustive sit-down format. So
I think this gives a better picture of there's an assessed need driven by data, and then there's the response actions and how those are playing out, and this is really helpful to see. Any other questions, comments from the board?
Nothing big, just lots of appreciation on particularly getting parents involved, because I think that's one of the biggest indicators of how much support the students are also getting outside of school. And correct me if I'm remembering wrong, but I feel like Principal McNally, you mentioned last year that parent-teacher night, like the room was overflowing at one point. It takes a lot of effort to bring that level of engagement and involvement, and just lots of appreciation for that. The high school in particular had like the largest increase in students with disabilities in both ELA and math, and that just makes me really, really happy because, you know, we often see data that's trending downwards. And so just, again, lots of appreciation for that, and especially the one-on-one engagement with the students. I think the one thing that really I am happy to see at the middle school as well is the number of individual contacts with parents. That's a significant amount, and just really, really grateful that that kind of communication is taking place, as well as like just coming up with new sports and clubs to make sure that students are finding where they belong within the school system. So just always impressed by the work both you do and your teams and everyone else at both sites. But yeah, just keep doing the amazing work. That's all I got.
Yeah. Big appreciation. I also want to shout out, I love the goal of getting from 6,500 full day absences to 4,000. I think it's always really powerful if people can have really simple metrics in their head that really move the needle. And so the more we can do that, the more you can help everybody kind of engage in saving one more day or something like that. So that just really struck with me, but thank you. And I can attest that back to school night at Albany High, you have to get there early. Otherwise, you're standing behind the presenters because there's just too many people in the gym.
It's okay, we know we're busting at the seams for a lot of our community events, and we need to address that. When someone said the movie night at Cornell earlier, I was like, oh, okay, you mean where you can barely move, and it sounds like our back to school night is similar here, which is great. Our community is very involved. I really appreciate, I think it speaks to what you both presented, but hearing it anecdotally from students who have just started at AMS or just started at AHS and be like, oh, how is it? How's the transition? And everyone's so positive and like, oh, it's so cool. We have this, or I'm playing this sport that I didn't do before. And to see it actually translating into the student responses means it's happening in action. It's real. And so I really appreciate that. And I think, like I said earlier, having those very clear goals helps us also to know. It is interesting to be working with data from right coming out of the pandemic though. So I'll be really curious to see how this continues to translate. All right, any public comment on the SIPSAs?
Okay, I have this same height as the student who was here before me, who was in elementary school. So I wanted to welcome incoming Superintendent Stone. It was really nice to be on the panel and to get to know you a little bit. I'm Jen. I'm one of the co-ATA co-presidents. And I want to say, transitioning to the middle school this year, it's been a very long time since I've been there, 20 years since I was there last, and I love being there. We're really, really full. So I would say that a ton of these things that we want to address, if we had lower class sizes, we could hit a lot of these things. A lot of our teachers are in overage, which means that they're above the ideal cap that we have in our contract. And we have 12 sixth grade sections for the first time. And I know students equals money, and I understand that, but also it's really hard to make those connections that they need when we just have so many of them in our classes. So I just wanted to mention that. If it can ever be a goal to lower those class sizes, I think it would hit a lot of stuff. That said, I love running my knitting club, and and it really is wonderful to be at a site with counselors and with supports in place. And so I really appreciate being at a site with all of those things. So yeah, thanks.
I actually did want to ask that earlier. You said our enrollment now, I was like, oh, let me dig back and find the enrollment data that we just had. But how are we comparing? Are we, there were a couple of those years is what I think back to when we decided we had to build the annex. And so I'm always looking back at those years, like where do we compare in our numbers to that point in time? Does anyone know, or I can look it up later, but.
Don't quote me on the exact numbers, but I believe starting 3 years ago, we were at around 770. And then last year around 820, 825, and now we're at 915. We are very desirable. People want to send their kids to Albany Middle School, and they are moving into Albany. Our sixth grade population is at 332. Seventh grade is at 300, and eighth grade is at 283, I believe. So yeah.
Okay, are we seeing that growth continue into AHS?
I mean, we did see, Marina, I think, could probably, 30 or 40 new resident Albany enrollees in Albany High School this year, to the point where we did have to freeze some enrollment, especially with our 9th grade, just because of unexpected numbers. We've been running at Albany High in the neighborhood of 285 to 305 per grade level. So, we've seen a little bit of a decline in the time I've been principal, but there's a real baby boom coming through with that 330 that we're already thinking about for the high school and how we're going to anticipate that with our programs.
I'm just looking back at the numbers, and it does look like in 6th grade in 2014, 2015, we were at 298, and it looks like we had a bubble to 321 in 2015, 2016. And right now, in 6th grade, 331 this year in 6th grade is what it looks like. Okay. So this year, we're actually higher in 6th grade than we've ever been in the data that we have. Okay, so this is really something that I think, now we have that, now we have this. I think we need to have do that at the end, but an agenda item to discuss sort of next steps around all of that. Okay. I really like looking at numbers, sorry. Okay, any other questions up here? We've had public comment. All right, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. We are gonna move on to our staff report on the Children and Behavioral Health Initiative and a contract with TAD Health. And so 2 items tonight had gone on the consent calendar, and this is one of them, and we are just asking, every time we bring a new type of item or contract, it's in our board policies that we present them in a different way. And so this is just to get us some more information on an item.
Wonderful. Good evening. Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Shin, and our board president, Trustee Davidson, rest of our board trustees, student board members, and a big welcome to our new Superintendent Stone. Happy to have you here. Yes. So I am going to do a short staff report on the Children and Youth Behavioral Health Initiative and TAD Health. TAD Health was the contract that was approved at the last board meeting, and now we're kind of filling in some of the gaps and making sure everyone understands kind of what the big picture is. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Give me one moment. Okay, great. So what I wanted to start with is what the Children and Youth Behavioral Health Initiative is. And just sort of what the general structures are of how it works. And then I'm going to just kind of help you understand how TAD Health fits into that picture and what we're hoping to be able to do with the money that we are excited to be hopefully bringing in starting in January. That's what we're hoping. So the goal of this is to improve school-based mental health services for all children. It was an initiative that was brought forth by Governor Newsom, where he announced a commitment to supporting students' mental and behavioral health where they can receive it and when they can receive it most easily. And so really wanting to tap into, we had this huge boom in mental health challenges that happened during COVID, especially among children and teens. Being able for families to be able to access mental health for their children and teens has become increasingly more difficult, and both in terms of cost, in terms of availability, even when it's covered through insurance, trying to access that is really difficult. And so the idea of it was that kids are at school, kids who need these services are at school. Can we help to supplement what schools are able to do so that students can receive these mental and behavioral health services at school? And so what it taps into is the ability and a mandate that insurance companies allow schools to bill them for services that are being provided. And it gets submitted to this third-party administrator called Carillon. That was who was designated. And so you'll see TPA a lot, third-party administrator. And basically, the idea was that this was going to be launched with the first cohort this year. And of January of 2024 is what I mean by this year. And so there have been 2 cohorts that have started already. We were just accepted into cohort 3, yay. So we're excited about that. That was a heavy lift to get to that acceptance. So we're really excited to know that it went through. And what's happened though is that a lot of my colleagues who I know who are in districts who got in on the cohort 1 and 2 still haven't received any money because of the complications around billing, and I'm going to explain that in just a little bit more depth, which is kind of what led us to working with TAD Health, and that's kind of the direction that a lot of people are moving in. And so basically the new, what was told to me, I was in this Department of Children Health Services, like welcome to cohort 3 training, and they said this analogy I just like can't get out of my head. They're like, it's like they've been building the plane while they're flying it. And I was like, ooh, that's a really scary analogy. But it is what's been happening is that they're like, okay, we're doing this thing, and here's the money, and this is how you get it, and oh, there's this requirement, or oh, we need to figure out this. And it's just been like a little chaotic is how I've experienced it. And so what they are now, I think cohort 3 is a sweet spot to be getting into because a lot of things have been worked out and there's a lot of different companies that are in place now to support that process. But it's basically that what we need is to integrate in our student data systems and gather what people's health coverage is. The LEAs, we need to know kind of who the eligible practitioners are, and they need to be trained on how to bill and how to put in the services that are being provided. There's all these different billing codes, and then it has to be transmitted to this third-party Carillon. So it's like this, how do we collect information that falls under both FERPA and HIPAA now, and how do we protect that information, and how do we bill insurance company, and all of those pieces. And so, just to give you a sense, there's a huge range of different services that we can bill for. And when you look at like the billing codes, it's like 30-minute this and an hour this or 45-minute that, and there's all these different services. But basically the things that we're gonna be billing for, initially at least, are things that we already provide. We're not providing something new yet. Right now, we're just going to be able to bill for what we're providing, and those are mental health sessions. We were told that our mental health interns would qualify as being able to bill when we first started this process, and now we're being told maybe not, so I'm in a multi-party discussion trying to get that sorted out. But certainly, mental health sessions by our mental health specialists will be able to bill for. Counselors, anything with our school psychologists, even discussions about students at cost teams will be able to bill for. They just added psychologists' initial evaluations, Dr. Biggs, yay. And those take a long time, so that's gonna be a nice way to be able to recoup some of those funds. So that's not comprehensive, but just gives you a sense of some of the main things that we'll be able to bill for. So how does TAD Health fit in? So basically, in order to figure out how to integrate our information system with the health insurance and these different ways of billing and bill, you have to work with someone. So you either work with ACOE, our County Office of Education, and it sounds like they are working very hard to support districts, and just don't quite have the capacity to manage all of this, and it sounds like that's been very difficult and has led to districts not being able to get their money yet, although I think that they're probably figuring things out and are moving in the right direction. And then there's a number of different companies that offer services. TAD Health, what's wonderful and unique about them is that they built their platform using school psychologists, administrators, counselors to like have an inside look at what would be user-friendly and accessible. And the person who's going to train us, in fact, she is currently a school psychologist half-time in Fremont, and she also was working for TAD Health half-time, so she really gets it. And I think that's really important because what we don't want to do is put a whole bunch of extra work on our providers who are already spread very thin. So what we're trying to have it be is as quick as possible, and I'll kind of show you what that looks like, for them to be able to say, yep, I provided this 30-minute session for this kid. It's in the system, took 30 seconds out of their time to do that, and now we can bill for it. And so TAD Health is user-friendly, as I understand it, and timely. They're super responsive. I mean, every time something's come up where I'm like, oh, now we have to fill out this report, and now we need this for application. It's just like this constant barrage. If there's something that I'm like not sure about, like I reach out to them and I hear back in 10 minutes with support. So that's nice to know, and they're going to be available to all of our providers as anything comes up. And so I'm just going to very kind of briefly run you through the main points of them. So these are kind of the pieces I'm going to be hitting on. So they have worked a lot with school districts who have ARIES already. So they already have figured out how to integrate with ARIES and the billing system. And their whole piece is like, it was built by counselors and admin for district implementation with an eye on how do we minimize the amount of lifting we're asking of our providers. There's role-based access, so instead of having to pull from like a list of like, here's a 300 possible billing codes, what we'll do is I'll work with Dr. Biggs and we'll kind of assign for each person what are the possible things they might bill for. A counselor might bill for a 15, 30, 45-minute check-in. They might, what are those things? And so when they log in, they only see the things that they can bill for. It'll make it much easier. Yeah, it integrates in with areas. Right now, we're working with Linda Williams and them to try to figure out what's going to be the most efficient way to collect health insurance information. We wanted to collect it at the beginning of the year when we did our ARIES verification, but ARIES hadn't worked out their glitch yet on how to do that. And so now apparently it is worked out, and so we're strategizing about the best way to do that. That'll be coming out in the next month. And then they have a really clean reporting system with billing integration, which will, I think, do two things. One, most importantly, it'll allow us to really recoup as much money as possible, which is, I think, one of the big advantages of working with them is really being able to know all the different ways that we can bill, and everybody who is billing is trained on those things and do that effectively. It also is going to give us some great reports. Like when we're talking about mental health data and what are we doing for our students, like this is going to be like the best data we've ever had, where we can really see how many sessions and how much access and how many students in a really clear way. And then to be able to really streamline reimbursement so we can start getting money from this as soon as we possibly can. And so we were hoping, our goal is to be able to start billing right after winter break, to do our trainings in November and start billing right after winter break. That's what we hope. The first day we legally can start billing is technically January 1st, which obviously we're not even here, but as soon as we come back. And so kind of just in summary, the idea is just at this point to increase student access to preventive mental health services by starting to bring in more money. We lost a lot of our mental health funding with budget cuts. We lost access to student success space in the middle school. There's a lot of pieces. And so the hope is that we're going to be able to start rebuilding and providing more mental health support. What I anticipate, although we'll work with our new superintendent on this, is that this next semester will give us a chance to really see what we are actually bringing in, so that we can make plans for the following school year in terms of mental health specialists and what we can provide. And the great thing about the funds is it does go into our general fund, and so obviously the intent and the goal is to provide additional mental health support, so we're going to keep our eyes focused on that, but it complicates it less. And from the beginning when we started this process, like last school year, the goal was to be able to increase mental health support. We often have students on wait lists to see mental health specialists, and that's not what we want. We really want to be able to serve all students who need it. And before I ask you if you have any questions, I'll also just add, because a question was shared with me ahead of time, so just to kind of recap this one piece. The TAD Health they're projecting, and this is all very what they have from experiences in other districts. This is not like we can run with this and hire people with it money, but this is I'm just sharing with you what they shared with me, that for a full school year of being able to collect on services, they think our potential earning is about $875,000. Whether that's how it plays out or not, we don't know, and we only are going to be doing it for half a school year this year. But again, I think that half a school year will give us real clear information about how much money we'll bring in so we can plan for the 2025-26 school year. So that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions.
This is great. For better or for worse, you got my question ahead of time, so it was all good and answered it, and made me feel really comfortable with it. But yeah, no, this is obviously good for students and good for the district from a financial perspective, so I feel good about that.
Awesome, thank you.
I know, I felt like years ago, I feel like we had this discussion when you were still at AMS, and it was like, maybe one day. And then COVID hit, and we were like, well, we have one-time funding, okay, and that's great, it feels magical. And now it's like, oh wait, it actually could be sustainable.
Yeah, this is could be really game-changing for our mental health services.
I mean, I think not even just that, but like you were saying, the psychologist, those initial psychologist ones, that's seems always like a challenging area, and it does take a long time and a lot of work. And so to be able to take some of that, it feels like there could be a real balance. So I appreciate this. And I really appreciate you bringing us all of this information so that we can really understand.
Yes, and thank you for your grace with the order of that.
Okay, we just want to know the information. I think that's
what you should.
All right, any public comment? This is just a staff report. We already approved this contract, but we just wanted to make sure, since it's a new contract, that we did due diligence. So any public comment? All right, seeing none and many cookies being enjoyed, we will move on to our superintendent and board member reports.
All right. First of all, I'd like to really appreciate Executive Director Brill for doing all of that hard work, heavy lifting to get us into cohort 3. That is a lot of money, and so I'm really excited about it as well. And of course, support for our students. Okay, with that being said, I really wanted to uplift and appreciate our teachers for a phenomenal and impactful professional development day that happened on October 14th. This is the second year where we have been able to build in an all-day professional development day for our educators. And of course, I'm sure this is the best day for our students who got to stay at home and enjoy their own fun learning. So again, having a dedicated day in which we all get together and collaborate, I believe was really, really powerful. So just to begin at the elementary level, all 3 schools got together at Ocean View Elementary and engaged in professional development, really focused on math instruction aligned to the standards at each grade span. So what they did was engaged in fun learning. So they played math games together that were, again, aligned to standards and are adaptable at each of the grade levels. And we had 2 of our teachers who actually led these professional development sessions for their colleagues and peers. And then at the middle school level, we also did the same thing. It was really our program specialists. I also want to say that our special education team, as well as our ELD and instructional specialists, so all of our teachers who are outside of the classroom also engaged in the professional development learning together, and as well as presented information to one another. And so at the middle school, yes, it was the teachers who really shared their best practices with one another and all of the wonderful instructional strategies strategies that they use to engage students. And the thing that was most impressive about what was presented at AMS was that these teachers were nominated by their students. So our administrators asked students, who are your teachers that really engage you in learning and make sure that all students learn? And what are those things that they do to ensure that you're learning? And so it was brought to our attention that, of course, every teacher was named at least once, but there were some teachers who were named again and again and again. And these teachers were asked to share those best practices with their colleagues. And one of those teachers she is here right there. Miss Jen Gripman was one of those nominated teachers who shared her best practices as well. And then at the high school, as Principal McNally mentioned, they're engaged in the WASC accreditation process, and it's a real extensive process in which every single site teacher is within one of the 5 groups that are within the WASC report. And so they broke out into their groups and really delved deep into the study. So what happens is whatever section that you are assigned to, you really look into responding to the questions that are at hand. So I had the privilege of working with Group A, which is really about organization. And oftentimes teachers are not that familiar with the district organization. And it really talks about how does the board, its policies as well as the district office really align themselves and support school sites. So I really appreciated the opportunity to work with our teachers to really give them greater insight about the work that all of you do, as all of the work that we do, all of the board policies that have been recently updated. And they were extremely pleased that we actually do all this work behind the scenes, right? Often it's not seen, it's not apparent. And so I really appreciated that opportunity to work directly with that group to let them know, again, all of the work all hard work that you put in every single day. So thank you. So yeah, it was truly a pleasure for me and really, really meaningful. And I really appreciated the opportunity to learn from our teacher leaders. And I look forward to the second session that will happen in March.
So just 2 things. Firstly, wanted to take the chance again to make sure that people know the Black Parent Advisory Group is having, this microphone has a weird sort of sound to me this evening. I'm just getting used to it. Anyway, that the Black Parent Advisory Group is having our meet and greet this Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. at Albany Middle School. We're going to have pizza, we're going to get to know each other a bit, and we're going to hear from teachers and administrators at all levels of the school district talking to us about the ways that they're supporting all of our students and especially our Black students. So everyone, all families of Black students in the district, hope that you will make time to come. And the second thing I'm going to say, it's about Halloween, and I'm taking the opportunity to say 2 short things to the people who are handing out the things in case any folks like that are listening. And presumably the things are candy, but some people like to go for, I don't know, raisins or other, that type of thing. Stickers, I don't know, erasers. So firstly, if people come to your door who are older than you would expect to be trick-or-treating, let's not say anything disparaging to the older kids. Let's be happy that that's what they're doing and not doing something else. I thought that was just kind of obvious, but I've heard from my team that some people say, aren't you kind of old to be doing this? Which seems silly to me. So that's one. And then the second thing is, let's respect that the people trick-or-treating might have preferences as to what sort of candy or, again, raisins, erasers, etc. you're handing out, and let them choose their thing, as opposed to putting a peanut candy in my daughter's bag who has a peanut allergy, for instance. So those are my 2 Halloween suggestions.
Again, always at a loss on how to follow up after Trustee Boyd, but a couple of announcements. Fall Festival went wonderfully. We have outraised the previous 2 years, which has been extremely difficult to do, especially coming back from COVID. So really, really grateful to everyone that came out, volunteered, baked, did all the things to make the Fall Festival possible. All of that money comes back to the classroom, and that's what's really important in all of the work that we do. It's still not too late to donate towards your Pledge Start for the walkathon. I know the walkathon already happened, but people can still donate, and your kids can still win the ice cream party if their class has the most donations per grade level. So check that out if you haven't already. Next, we have the Memory Book Art Contest. It's now live, and it is due October 31st. You can drop off your art at the front office to Miss Banyales' box. The theme this year is the Reef of Life, and it should connect to how Ocean View and all of our community works together to thrive together. The next announcement is about the Ocean View Book Fair. This year, we're opting to host our book fair actually at a local business called Pegasus Bookstore on Solano. You can go there and purchase books either in person or virtually from October 25th to November 1st. And just mentioning Ocean View a portion of your purchase will be donated to Ocean View. Our teachers have also picked out their wish list, and so you can purchase books from their wish list as well. Those books would be books used within your kiddos' classrooms. Additionally, we're going to have a celebrity teacher reading on October 27th at Pegasus, where a number of teachers have volunteered to come read books to the children. At 12, we'll have Miss Dunn, who's a second grade teacher. At 12:30, we'll have Mr. Ray, our previous Ocean View librarian. At 1, we'll have Miss Cohen, fourth grade teacher. And at 1:30, we'll have Miss Kim, our TK teacher. And then our PTA meeting is November 14th at the Ocean View Library from 6:30 to 7:30. Childcare and pizza will be provided. And then lastly, November 22nd is Coffee with the Principal at 8:35 a.m. in front of Ocean View. The last one was a huge success. We had tons of parents who came and spoke with Principal Delgado. It was wonderful. Come out and enjoy some coffee. That's all.
I go trick-or-treating since I was nominated as a student trustee earlier. Maybe I am too old, but you've been heard. I want to thank the AMS PTA for hosting me last week for their first in-person meeting, which was great. On the Marin side of things, the gardening committee is meeting this Thursday at 7 o'clock. It was already mentioned, but because it was one of my favorite fundraisers when my kids were in elementary school, Chalk It Up is the place to be on Saturday. It is a good time, one and all ages for sure in that one. I still think my best artwork was done there. And at Marin, you have until October 31st for the plastic packaging recycling campaign to come to an end. And obviously on the 31st, there's also the Halloween parade. And not to be forgotten, before our next board meeting on November 7th is their PTA meeting for Marin as well. So there you go.
I forgot two things.
We're meeting November 19th. Or you said PTA. Okay, I was like.
They are meeting before we are. They are meeting on November 7th. I won't announce it at the next one because then it would have been too late. That's what I meant to imply.
Sorry, two things. Trustee Khan has reminded me that at the Albany Middle School, we're having the AMS Craft Fair on Sunday, November 17th. I assume parents and caregivers actually read the emails from the principal, so I don't try to say all the things, but since Trustee Khan reminded me. And then the other thing I did want to say, though I've said it before, but as we're ending the end of October, throughout the month of October, if you shop at Umami, which is on Solano near the corner of Cornell, if you say AMS, a portion of their portion of what you buy goes to AMS, and it's a really great store. Beautiful jewelry, yummy soaps, like home decor, all sorts of wonderful things, gifts for others, gifts for yourself, etc. So a little more time to go there and throw some money AMS's way.
I'm going to give a second endorsement for the AMS Craft Fair as another thing my daughter participated in and loved and was fantastic every single year.
The last 2 years I've been really sad because I had other events that I was working on the AMS Craft Fair Day, and this year I'm like, I am keeping it clear. We're going. I cannot wait. I'm really excited. Also, Umami has like the best things that you could get. Sorry, but you can get earrings like these or rings like these. I probably wear something from there every day. So you can gift, you can enjoy, and you can support AMS. Local businesses. There are a lot of local businesses doing this, and I think it's really what shows how special Albany is, because many business owners are also very closely affiliated with our district. Okay, Cornell. we've heard a couple of things. Their first Spirit Day of the year is this Friday. It is Rainbow Day. There are colors for each grade. I feel like I have to go in order and it goes down. 5th grade is red, 4th grade is orange, 3rd grade is yellow, 2nd grade is green, 1st grade is blue, and TK and K are purple. So we have Roy G. Biv for everybody for your colors. The pumpkin patch is still going on at Westbury Nursery. Very, very fun event. They've had some bake sales over the weekends. They have a movie night this Friday. As I said earlier, get there early if you would like. It's Adam's Family. They are also hosting one of these plastic film drives with Ridwell. So collect all those little plastic pieces off the top of all your containers and turn them in. Cornell is having the garden days on Saturdays, which I don't think I've mentioned yet this year. Those are a really fun time to just kind of go and hang out and do some gardening and enjoy being there. They also have fall conferences coming up before our next meeting. Well, we really have to go into November this time. November 12th to the 22nd, which is all minimum days for those weeks. At this point, I think we've made all of our good announcements. Okay. Sometimes adults go trick-or-treating and they don't mind getting a piece of candy either.
I always give the adults candy.
Right? Or something else. I mean, it's fun.
Also, I am the adults as well.
Okay.
I get some candy also.
I mean, butter beer is enjoyable if you're dressed in Harry Potter costumes. Oh, okay, good, like it. We'll be looking for the zebra onesie. Oh no! Yep.
Earned this by putting a snake around my neck a month ago, facing a phobia.
Okay.
Good for you, Mary.
Wow. That was well timed. I like the planning here. Okay, we will now take future agenda items. It's because Vice President Hopwood and our interim superintendent are not here, and no one is keeping order of our meeting. Be prepared. I know we're very early. Okay, future agenda items.
Come back on the bathrooms for Cornell.
We're gonna talk about bathrooms some more, the Cornell bathrooms. And you have not been on the board long enough and probably not watched many of the meetings, but I do bring up the Cornell bathrooms very frequently, with some frequency. I would also like us to get an agenda item on, and I will make note of this and tell myself this, but so it's public. I think we do need to look at those enrollment data numbers and really kind of holistically look at what's happening in the district and just be thoughtful of how we're gonna move forward with that, because the numbers are definitely in some grades higher than they've ever been, and we can kind of track those bubbles. I think I was just looking back and seeing that that's something we can pay attention to. So we'll get that on the agenda, absolutely. I think it'd be great if we got some feedback from teachers about thoughts. Okay, with that, this meeting is adjourned.